The year our parents died, the family company was on the brink of bankruptcy. And at my sister's lowest point, I cut all ties with her. 5 years later, her company went public. She was a resounding success, the revered Miss Hawthorne everyone looked up to. A reporter asked her who she was most grateful for after all these years. My sister's gaze was cold, her tone dripping with sarcasm. The brother who left me for money. Actually, he's not my brother anymore. How is he doing now? The reporter pressed. This sparked a nationwide search for Ms. Hawthorne's brother, with a $10 million reward. But they never found me. All they found was the diary I kept before I died. When the reporter handed the diary to my sister, Chloe, she froze. Her hand trembled as she took it, only to toss it into the trash a second later. Is this some new trick of Ethan's? Or are you just doing this for the cameras? The reporter shook his head and carefully retrieved my diary from the bin. This is, in fact, your brother's final diary. As for his body, it was cremated. Since no one came to claim it, the crematorium handled the arrangements. Before he could finish, my sister shot up from her chair, her voice shaking with rage. Don't think I'll forgive him for a stunt like this. You go tell Ethan that I have a new brother now. He's nothing to me. Even if he's dead, I couldn't care less. The reporter looked at her, troubled. Then this diary, what should we do with it? My sister, Chloe Hawthorne, let out a cold laugh. Read it. Let's see what kind of story he's fabricated this time. The reporter opened to the first page of my diary. Dear diary, I guess it's just you and me from now on. So, today I tried to run away from home, taking the gifts my family had given me, but my sister caught me. I didn't want to face her. I just wanted to slip away quietly. But she was so persistent, grabbing my hand and begging me not to leave, saying I was the only family she had left. For a second, my heart wavered, but I kept my face cold and demanded, the company's bankrupt. Can you still buy me the collectible motorcycle models I like? I'm a big spender. Can you even afford to support me anymore? I'd rather not stick around here pinching pennies with you. Besides, I know someone. That made my sister even more frantic. She demanded to know who it was, warning me not to get scammed. She promised she'd work harder, that she'd make tons of money and give me back the privileged life I was used to. But you know what I said. I'd rather be scammed. What's it to you? If you were so capable, if you had the money to take care of me, then I'd be your good little brother and I'd come home. But when is that ever going to happen? My sister, always so proud, actually knelt down to beg me to stay. Pathetic, isn't it? I turned my head away, quickly wiping a tear from my eye before she could see. I even slapped her across the face. I told her to stop clinging to me, to stop holding me back from my future, and I declared that we were done. The slap stunned her. She just stood there, frozen, watching as I dragged my suitcase away. I'm sorry, Chloe. That must have really hurt. After reading the page, the reporter took a deep breath. I never realized how much Miss Hawthorne relied on her brother. But when the camera cut back to Chloe, her expression was unmoved, still glacial. She said flatly, I do have regrets. I regret being so good to him, only to raise an ungrateful brat. Dear diary, I'm back. I went to a different hospital today for a second opinion. I was praying the first diagnosis was a mistake. If it was, I could go back to Chloe and tell her I was sorry. All I'd have to do is apologize, and she'd forgive me, just like she always did. But life isn't full of miracles, is it? The doctor looked at me, his face grim. Where are your parents? This primary liver cancer, late stage. You need to be admitted to the hospital immediately. I didn't really understand all the medical terms, but the fear of death was enough to make me break down and cry. I'm only 18. The doctor gave me a sympathetic look and handed me the paperwork for admission. I went to the payment kiosk, saw the cost, and quietly slipped out of the hospital. It's for the best. My card is linked to Chloe's main account. I should save her the money. I'm gonna die soon anyway, so why waste her hard-earned cash? Every dollar is a struggle for her now. Ever since the main contractor for our parents' project skipped town, everything collapsed. The project went bust, the funding dried up. Mom and Dad were under so much pressure, running around trying to fix things, when they died in a car crash on their way back from a business dinner. Everything fell onto Chloe's shoulders. I watched creditors come to our house and strip it of everything valuable. I saw Chloe on her knees, begging them to leave the money they'd set aside for my college fund. But the bank seized it all anyway. To pay off the debts, she went everywhere, borrowing from anyone she could. She didn't have the time or money to see a doctor for her own health. The moment she was conscious after a collapse, she'd check herself out of the hospital and go right back to hustling, groveling for business. I cried and begged her to rest until she was better, but she'd just say she was tough as nails and would be fine. She's so stubborn, isn't she? I wanted to help, to tell her I didn't need to go to some fancy college, that I wasn't that spoiled kid anymore. I would have given up everything. I could have gotten a part-time job to help support her. But of course, at the worst possible moment, I had to get the most expensive kind of disease. Don't you think I'm pretty useless, too, diary? The reporter's eyes were red. It seems your brother really did have his reasons for leaving. To get liver cancer so young, it's just tragic. Chloe scoffed. A fine sob story. Don't be fooled, Mr. Davies. Ethan is an expert liar. When he was a kid, he faked a sprained ankle to skip school. He had the whole family in a panic, rushing him to the hospital. He's always been a great actor. I hope so. I couldn't sleep again last night. It's not that I didn't want to, the pain was just too much to bear. I can't get through it without painkillers. But I have no money, and right now, there are more important things to worry about. If I don't pay rent, my landlord is going to kick me out. I might actually have to sleep under a bridge, like I used to joke about with Chloe. I used to think it sounded so cool and adventurous in books, but now that it's a real possibility, I'm terrified of being broke. I had no choice but to list some of the gifts Mom and Dad gave me for sale online. They're among the few things I have left, but whenever someone actually messaged me about them, I'd make up an excuse. I just can't bear to sell them. In the end, the pain and hunger got so bad that I had to withdraw $500 from the account. I'm sorry, Chloe. I spent your money again. Being poor has cured my picky eating, at least. I was so hungry I was about to pass out, and I actually picked a half-eaten sandwich out of the trash and ate it. Tasted pretty good, honestly. I guess poverty is the cure for all my rich kid problems. I went to the store and bought a loaf of bread and a jug of water, then to the pharmacy for some painkillers. The rest is for rent. My guidance counselor called again, trying to convince me to come back to school, saying it was a waste for a student with my grades to be skipping so much. I was so afraid he'd call Chloe that I told him I was dropping out. But he called her anyway. Chloe just called. Her voice was hard and cold. Ethan, I know you want nothing to do with me. I don't care who you're shacking up with, but you don't throw away your future for them. You were always so proud of your grades. Is this how you honor Mom and Dad? By throwing your life away? It had only been 10 days since I'd heard her voice, but it felt like an eternity. I clamped my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob, but the tears just kept coming. Chloe, I miss you so much. On the other end, she grew impatient. If you're just going to be silent, then I'm really done with you. She hung up. I cried for a long time after that. I think I'm just going to block her number, diary. And tomorrow, I'll go make my withdrawal from school official. The reporter noticed Ms. Hawthorne seemed lost in thought. He paused for a moment, wiping a tear from the corner of his own eye. Dear diary, I moved. The last motel was $50 a night, way too expensive. I spent all day searching the city and finally found a place in a rundown neighborhood in the South Bronx. It's only $30 a night. It's a room with 4 bunks. There's this creepy older guy in the bed across from me. He gave me the chills the second I saw him. I shot a grateful look at the girl in the bunk below me. Her name is Alex. She just looked up at me and smiled. Don't worry, she said. I've got your back. She's really nice. I took my meds that night and slept soundly for once. I dreamed that Mom and Dad took Chloe and me to Disneyland. Chloe knew how much I loved Iron Man, so she stood in line for hours for me. When it was finally her turn, she called my name and pushed me forward to meet the actor. I was finally getting a picture with my hero. I was grinning so hard my eyes were just slits. Mom, Dad, and Chloe were watching from nearby, all smiling. But when the picture was done and I turned around, they were gone. The sunny sky had suddenly turned dark. I was so scared. I looked everywhere, but I couldn't find them. I woke up in a cold sweat. Alex was looking down at me, concerned. You okay? I just shook my head. She asked me why I was living in a place like this, and I ended up telling her everything. I don't know why, but I just trusted her. When I finished, she didn't say anything. She just hugged me. Her hug was so warm. Alex told me she was an orphan. She'd been adopted, but her adoptive father was abusive, so she ran away. She's been on her own since she was a teenager, met all sorts of people, and learned how to take care of herself. A kid like you, she said, definitely needs me to watch out for him. She taught me all these tricks for saving money, like how to find expired food at the supermarket. Sometimes they'll give you a small refund, other times they'll just let you take it for free. Or how to pick up discarded vegetable leaves at the farmer's market, cut off the bad parts, and boil them for a meal. Alex even got me a part-time gig just to make some cash. I made $60 in one afternoon. Holding that money, for the first time, I didn't feel completely useless. I thought, if I could make this much every day, maybe I could even leave something behind for Chloe when I'm gone. I actually laughed out loud at the thought. Alex looked at me like I was an idiot. You're this happy over $60? She poked my forehead. You've got low standards. Besides having to watch out for that creepy guy and racing to get washed up before they cut the power and water at 10 p.m., I was actually pretty happy living here. It's almost lights out. Good night." The reporter noticed that when he read the part about the creepy guy, even the stoic Miss Hawthorne quietly clenched her fist. He thought that perhaps she didn't despise her brother as much as she let on. But a moment later, he dismissed it as his imagination, turned the page, and continued reading. "Dear Diary, I left. Alex saw me coughing up blood yesterday. She has almost no money to her name, but she insisted on taking me to a doctor. I hadn't told her I was sick, just that I'd had a fight with my sister, but I couldn't hide it from her anymore. Maybe I'm just bad luck. I don't want to be a burden to Chloe, and I definitely don't want to drag down this kind, tough girl I just met. She told me she's saving up to open her own auto repair shop one day, to have a place of her own. I'm not going to let you die this young," she said, her eyes full of defiance. I just smiled and nodded, but in my head, I was thinking, "Goodbye, Alex." I packed my few things and slipped out early the next morning. I'm squatting while I write this, and my legs are falling asleep. Hold on, let me stretch. Okay, my health is getting worse. I've started throwing up blood now. It just happened again. People on the street were freaked out. They all kept their distance, pointing and whispering. I just curled into a ball and waited a long time before I could even lift my head. I saw a drop of blood had landed on the page. I tried to wipe it away, but it just smeared and made the stain bigger. "I'm sorry, diary, for getting you dirty. I really didn't mean to, I just can't control it." While I was catching my breath, an older woman in worn-out clothes came over and pressed some money into my hand. I tried to refuse, but she just dropped it and hurried away. I followed her quietly and saw she was with her husband, who was in a wheelchair holding a small child. She smoothed her hair, kissed the baby's cheek, and went right back to calling out, trying to sell fruit from a small cart. I waited there for a long time, until it got dark and I was half frozen. They still had most of their fruit left. The woman sighed, and her husband said a few comforting words. They started packing up, placing the baby in a little basket. I pulled on my beanie, walked over quickly, and when they weren't looking, I tucked the money she gave me back into the baby's blanket. What a well-crafted story. I was almost moved. Chloe interrupted. "Is he broke? Did he start writing fiction for money?" "Mr. Davies, there's no need to read any further. It's ridiculous that I've sat here and wasted this much time. If he's going to fake his own death because he's too cowardly to face me, then I'll just consider him dead for real. It's not like I care." With that, she stood up and walked away without a backward glance. The interview was over, but that interview segment went viral. Someone dug up old reports from 5 years ago, showing Ms. Hawthorne visiting a therapist's office right after she and her brother cut ties. People speculated that the death of her parents and her brother's betrayal had led to severe depression. They also found out that once her company was stable, she had adopted a new younger brother. Ethan's diary, however, became the subject of intense debate online. Some called him a drama queen, faking his own death for attention. They said he abandoned his sister for money, leaving her to face bankruptcy and causing her immense psychological damage. Now that she was successful, he was playing the victim to win sympathy, even fabricating a diary. Too bad for him, Ms. Hawthorne had a new brother now. Rumor was, for his 18th birthday, she rented out an entire amusement park and bought him a limited edition sports car. She doted on him completely, but others weren't so sure. They felt the diary seemed too real, the emotions too sincere. They couldn't believe the person who wrote it was just a gold digger. Whatever their opinion, everyone was eager to hear the rest of the diary. For the sake of publicity, the TV station contacted Ms. Hawthorne again, asking for her permission to release the rest of her brother's final entries. Whether out of disbelief or genuine indifference, no one knew, but Ms. Hawthorne's assistant replied that the diary was now the station's property to do with as they pleased, publicize or destroy. She didn't care. The assistant added that Ms. Hawthorne had made it clear she only had one brother, Leo. A portion of the online comments were smug, saying it served Ethan right and that his act was pointless since his sister clearly didn't care. With permission granted, the station quickly scheduled a live special, The Final Diary of Ethan Hawthorne. On screen, Mr. Davies looked solemn. "Like all of you, I have not read this diary ahead of time. With Ms. Hawthorne's permission, I will now share it with you. I only ask that you listen with an open heart." The stream's viewership exploded, hitting 1 million viewers in under a minute. Everyone waited for him to open the diary. Meanwhile, at the Hawthorne residence, her assistant, Mark, watched Chloe with a complicated expression. After a long pause, he finally said, "Ms. Hawthorne, the program is starting." Chloe didn't even look up from her work. "I told you, I don't want to hear another word about him." Mr. Davies took a deep breath and began to read. "Dear Diary, I found a little dog today. I was going to just leave it, but it kept following me, dragging an injured leg and whining. I knew I couldn't take care of it in my condition, so I forced myself to keep walking. But I only made it 2 steps before I turned back. The moment I picked it up, the little guy's eyes lit up, and he started licking my hand nonstop. I sighed. He must have known I was a sucker. I named him Chance, hoping he'd have better luck and a longer life than me. I took him to a vet, and just the exam fee wiped me out. The surgery he needs will cost $2,000. The vet said he'll die without it. I held Chance and pleaded with the vet. Can I bring him back in a few days? I don't have the money right now. It can't wait, he said. Tomorrow is the latest. I walked out of the vet's office with Chance and just sat on the curb, completely lost. I started talking to him. You're a dumb dog, you know that? Of all the people in the city, you had to pick me, a guy who's about to die. And I'm broke. Where am I supposed to get $2,000 for you? He couldn't understand me, of course. He just wagged his tail, happy to have found a home. Watching him, my eyes started to tear up again. I had no choice. I walked to an ATM, my hand hovering over the keypad, about to withdraw the $2,000. This is the last time, Chloe, I swear. The very last time I'll spend your money. But the transaction was declined. She canceled my card. My heart just sank, but it makes sense. I'm the one who said we were done. She has no reason to keep giving me money. I never wanted to contact her again, but for Chance, I had to. I unblocked her number and called. It rang for so long I thought she wouldn't pick up, but then, finally, she answered. She let out a cold laugh. Having regrets? To think you'd actually call me after blocking my number. Didn't you say we were done? Or did you just run out of money? Her words cut me off before I could speak. I wanted to hang up so badly, but then I felt Chance shift in my arms. I need $2,000, I said. She was silent for a moment, then her voice was sharp. You haven't contacted me in weeks. You don't ask if I'm eating, if I'm sleeping, if I miss you. You just want money. Is that right? I bit my lip so hard I could taste blood, and I forced myself to swallow. I answered like a robot. Yes. I thought I heard a sob on her end. Fine. You want money? I'll give it all to you. Are you happy now? I should have known better than to ever have hope for you. Ethan, you are heartless. As of today, we are officially done. You are no longer my brother. She hung up, couldn't hold it back anymore. I collapsed to the ground, holding Chance, and vomited. So much blood. It didn't show up much against the dark pavement. Chance was terrified, whining and licking my face. I tried to soothe him, but I just felt numb. The pain in my chest was worse. I looked at my phone and saw a notification. A transfer for $20,000 from Chloe. When I tried to send the extra money back, I discovered she had already blocked me. I held Chance and just cried. I knew it was real this time. Chloe was really done with me. I had wanted her to forget me, to cut me off, but now that she had, I was so heartbroken I could barely breathe. I don't have a home anymore, Chance. The live chat was flooding with comments. Even if he's faking and made this all up, this story is killing me. I'm crying. Keep going. What happened to Chance? The dog can't talk. He just thinks he's found a home. That's brutal. There were still a few people calling Ethan an actor, but they were drowned out. It seemed everyone was now more worried about the dog. Urged on by the viewers, Mr. Davies collected himself and turned the page. Dear Diary, it's been a while. I have good news. Chance had his surgery and he's all better now. He's become the clingiest little dog, though. He follows me everywhere and even sleeps curled up at my feet. The bad news is my sickness is worse. I don't know how much time I have left. Maybe less than a month. When I go to the pharmacy to buy painkillers now, the pharmacists look at me with suspicion, like I'm an addict. Luckily, I still have my diagnosis papers. After I show them and plead a little, they usually give in. But the pills are working less and less, so I have to take more just to fall asleep. Yesterday, I was handing out flyers and I just collapsed on the sidewalk. It scared Chance half to death. He kept licking my face and barking until someone finally noticed and took me to the ER. Another hospital bill. I did the math in my head, heartbroken. Not only did I lose my pay for the day, but I was now even deeper in the hole. The doctor was firm. You need to be admitted, and we need to notify your family. If you keep on like this, you might not have much time. He didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what he meant. I gave him some vague answers and got out of there as fast as I could. I can't afford to be hospitalized. Chance was waiting for me right by the entrance. The second he saw me, he came running. That night, the pain was so bad I just tossed and turned. Chance could tell I was suffering. He got so anxious, but all he could do was press up against me and lick my face, whining like he was about to cry. I weakly lifted a hand to pet him, trying to tell him I was okay, but a second later I was running to the bathroom, heaving into the toilet. Felt like I was trying to empty my entire body. I don't know how long I was there, just vomiting until the world went black. I came to with Chance licking my face. I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and it scared me. I look awful. My hair is thinning, my skin is yellow, and my once full cheeks are so sunken you can see the sharp line of my jaw. Chloe used to tease me about my baby face, saying I looked harmless. Now it looks like I'm stuck with this face forever. Staying young forever isn't all it's cracked up to be. I wanted to grow up, to be there for Chloe, to watch her get married and build her career and be happy. I splashed some water on my face and patted my cheeks, trying to psych myself up. I guess there's one good thing about this. At least Chloe can't see what I look like now. It would terrify her. I took some pills and managed to get to sleep, but I woke up in the middle of the night with a fever. It hurt so much. Diary. I really miss Chloe. I just want to see her one more time, just from a distance. That's not too much to ask, is it? I'm going to go see her. I'll take Chance with me. I've got my beanie, a face mask, and my black jacket. I'll look like some kind of spy. I just want to see her from far away. That's all. Dear Diary, I'm back. Chloe is still as beautiful and sharp as ever. She's taller, but thinner too. I was just going to look and then leave, but she seemed so unhappy. She used to smile all the time. I followed her without thinking. I didn't know why she was going to a medical building or why she was seeing a therapist. After she left, I asked the doctor about her. He refused to tell me anything at first, citing patient confidentiality. But I kept begging, and he finally sighed and told me about her condition. Chloe is sick, really sick. Our parents' death hit her hard, but me leaving made her blame herself for everything. She thinks she failed, that she couldn't take care of me, and that's why I left. The doctor said she even started hurting herself. I cried, and then I started laughing through the tears. She's so stupid. It was me who was useless. I was the one who would have dragged her down. Chloe is the best sister in the world. She'd save her allowance for a whole year to buy me one expensive birthday gift. She'd get suspended for beating up the jocks who picked on me. After Mom and Dad died, she handled everything, shouldered all that pressure by herself, and still tried to give me a good life. How could I ever despise her? Mr. Davies paused, holding the diary up to the camera. The audience could see that besides the neat script, the page was warped and stained, the ink blurred in places. He must have cried for a long time for the tears to soak the page like this, the reporter said, his own voice thick with emotion as he tried to steady it. I'm so useless. There's nothing I can do. I watched her walk right past me, and I didn't have the courage to even hug her. Our eyes met for a split second, but she just looked away. She didn't recognize me. I guess that's for the best. I look like a ghost. It's better if she never sees me like this. I don't want to make her sad. Diary, I've made a decision. Rather than just waste away in pain. Do you think I'm doing the right thing? This sickness is making my head fuzzy. I keep talking to you and to Chance like you can actually talk back. But what about Chance? I can't just abandon him. I have an idea. I'll leave Chance with Chloe. He can keep her company, and he'll have someone to take care of him. It's the perfect plan. Then I remembered, tomorrow is my birthday. I'll hold on one more day. I don't want to die on my birthday. For my 17th birthday last year, Mom and Dad got me a custom-built, top-of-the-line gaming PC. I remember Dad clapping me on the shoulder after I set it up, laughing and saying I was the coolest kid he knew. Chloe got me a beautiful mechanical watch, the face gleaming under the lights. It must have cost a fortune. All those expensive gifts were seized by the banks long ago. The only things I have left are the smaller, less valuable presents. I carry them with me everywhere. Even when I was starving, I couldn't bring myself to sell a single one. When I sleep, I hold the stuffed bear Mom got me when I was 8. Feels like I'm hugging her. Mom, Dad, and Chloe always said they'd throw me a huge party for my 18th birthday to celebrate their little prince becoming a man. But now it's just me and Chance. Holding him is the only warmth I feel. He seems to sense how I'm feeling. He started licking my hands and my face with his wet tongue, trying to comfort me. It tickled, and I smiled and gave him a little kiss. I carried him to a bakery. I wanted to buy myself a small cake. I used to hate the huge, fancy cakes Mom and Dad would get for my birthday, but now, the thought of it made my mouth water. I saw the prices on the display cakes and just stood there, my heart aching. The clerk came over, annoyed. Are you buying something or not? If not, you need to leave. She glanced at Chance in my arms and frowned. And no pets allowed in here. But I had just seen another guy inside holding a poodle. Maybe it was because Chance looked a little scruffy. I didn't have the money to get him groomed. I apologized over and over and just bought the cheapest thing they had, a single chocolate cupcake. I found a bench in a nearby park and sat down with Chance. I didn't have a candle, so I just imagined one. I closed my eyes and made my wish. I wish for Chance to be safe and sound, and I wish for Chloe to be successful, prosperous, and happy for the rest of her life. I opened my eyes and gave most of the cupcake to Chance. He ate it happily, like he was celebrating for me. I was starving, but after just a couple of bites, I had to turn away and vomit it all back up. After that, I took Chance to a groomer and spent $200 to get him washed. The owner said he'd never seen such a well-behaved dog. When they handed him back to me, he was so clean and fluffy. He smelled so good. I held him close and just breathed him in. Chance was a gift to me, and now I want to give that gift to Chloe. I hope she'll take care of him, and I hope he can keep her company for me. I'm going to take the rest of that $20,000 too, and slip it under her door with him. If all goes to plan, this will be my last entry, because tomorrow I'm going to the other side to see Mom and Dad. I'll miss you, diary. I'll be watching over you, Chance. And Chloe, I will always be watching over you. The reporter thought that was the end, but he instinctively turned the page and saw more writing. I'm so sorry, Chance. I failed you. Did Chloe think you already had an owner? Or did she just not want you? I was hiding across the street, waiting for her to take him inside before I left. But he broke free from the leash and ran towards me, into the street. If I had just walked up and handed him to her myself, would he still be alive? I just kept crying, begging him not to leave me. Please don't leave me. He managed to lift his head, let out one last whimper, and licked my cheek before his eyes closed for good. I held him and started singing a stupid little song. Go to sleep now, little one. Open the door. I sang until I couldn't anymore, my face soaked with tears. I buried Chance on the little hill next to Mom and Dad's graves. The moon isn't full tonight, but it's bright. I can't wait any longer. Don't run too fast, Chance. I'm coming to find you. Mom, Dad, Chloe, goodbye. Mr. Davies finished reading, his own eyes brimming with tears. The live chat exploded. What? Chance died? And Ethan too? This is too cruel. Why did the dog have to die? My heart can't take this. Wait, is Ethan really dead, or is this all an act for the show? Someone please tell me. Mr. Davies spoke, his voice heavy. According to police records and our own investigation, Ethan Hawthorne passed away 5 years ago. This was not a performance. This was not a hoax. Out of respect for the deceased, I ask for your kindness. We will be preserving this diary. We will not be commenting further on this matter. Thank you. With that, the live stream ended. Unsatisfied, viewers flooded Ms. Hawthorne's Twitter account with direct messages and comments. The search volume was so high that a new hashtag started trending. Hashtag is Ethan Hawthorne's diary real. Then, Alex, the girl from the diary, posted on her own social media. Is Ethan really gone? I'm so sorry. He left without a word, and I looked for him for so long but could never find him. I failed him. If I had just forced him to go to the doctor, maybe he wouldn't have left so soon. Maybe things wouldn't have been so hard for him. Most people were skeptical until she posted a photo of the two of them together. The smiling boy in the picture was unmistakably a younger, healthier Ethan. That's when everyone believed her. The internet collectively broke down, finally accepting the diary was real. A wave of mourning for Ethan and Chance swept across social media, with new hashtags trending. Hashtag bring Ethan and Chance home and hashtag hope you're at peace. This finally reached Chloe's assistant, Mark. He stared at his phone for a long time before hesitantly approaching his boss. Ms. Hawthorne, do you remember seeing a dog about 5 years ago? A little beige one. Chloe looked at him, confused, then nodded slowly. I remember. I was coming home from the office and there was a little dog tied to the post out front. It was beige with a little pink nose. Very clean and cute, obviously someone's pet. I remembered how much Ethan loved animals, so I went over and petted it. It was so sweet, just kept wagging its tail. I figured its owner would be back soon, so I went inside. A little while later, I heard a commotion outside and went to the window. There was a boy in the middle of the street, holding the dog and just sobbing. It must have been the owner. I heard later that the dog got anxious waiting, broke its leash, and ran into traffic. Mark froze. Just then, his phone buzzed. He looked down at the file that had just been sent to him, and his breath caught in his throat. Ms. Hawthorne, I'm sorry. I've been looking into this behind your back, about the diary and about your brother. He's really gone. The police department registered his death 5 years ago. The certificate is authentic. It can't be faked. He died by suicide. The diary is real. Without daring to look at Chloe's reaction, Mark opened the trending topics on his phone. You should see this. Everything that happened to Ethan. The full diary was released today. I thought you should know. As he reached the door, he added quietly, your brother, he really went through a lot. Mark stepped out of the office, closing the door softly behind him. With that gentle click, the outside world seemed to vanish. Inside, there was only Chloe Hawthorne and the investigation file in her hands. which suddenly felt as heavy as lead. The air in the room grew thick and still. The cold, indifferent facade she had maintained for years shattered like a popped balloon. She couldn't bring herself to open the file, her icy fingertips just tracing the rough edge of the paper. Images from the interview flashed through her mind against her will. The unnatural clench in her chest when the reporter first produced the diary. The small, sharp pangs of doubt she had crushed while listening to the entries. And that line, "So Chance will have someone to take care of him." At the time, she dismissed it as a clumsy lie. Now, each word was a poisoned needle driving straight into her heart. With a trembling hand, she finally opened the file. The first page was a photocopy of the official death certificate, its black and white text stark and cold. Name, Ethan Hawthorne. Gender, male. Date of death, an autumn day 5 years ago, just 3 months after their last phone call. Cause of death, suicide by ingestion of poison. Location of discovery, a small grove by the river on the outskirts of the city, near the cemetery where he mentioned his parents were buried. Discovered by an elderly man out for a morning walk. Disposition of remains, unclaimed. Cremated as per city regulations. Ashes held for the required period, then scattered. Every word was a dull knife, sawing back and forth across her heart. The two words, unclaimed, felt like a physical slap across her face. What had she been doing then? Wallowing in the anger and pain of his betrayal. Sitting in her therapist's office, forcing smiles at cocktail parties. It had never once occurred to her to even check, to make sure he was actually okay somewhere. The next pages were grainy photocopies of the scene. A young man, so gaunt he was almost unrecognizable, leaned peacefully against a tree. He was wearing the black jacket from the diary, a beanie pulled down low over his face, and clutched tightly in his arms was a worn, brown teddy bear. Chloe recognized it instantly. It was the bear Mom had given him for his 8th birthday. He had kept it all this time. Another photo showed the diary, lying beside him, carefully wrapped in a plastic bag as if to protect it from the morning dew. Even at the end, he was protecting the only friend he had left to talk to. Chloe's breathing grew ragged, her vision blurring. She slapped a hand over her mouth, but it couldn't stifle the broken sobs that tore their way up from her chest. The tears she thought had dried up years ago now burst free, hot and scalding against her skin. "Ethan, Ethan, my Ethan," she whispered, her voice a raw, unrecognizable rasp. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't a story. He had really been sick. He had really been destitute. He had spent his last days suffering unimaginable pain and loneliness. And through it all, he was still thinking about her, his worthless sister. He had said those horrible things, pushed her away in the cruelest way possible. Not because he didn't love her, but because he loved her so much that he would rather take all the blame and suffer alone than be a burden to her. And her? What had she done? She had fallen for his act. She had hated him for 5 years. She had even said, "Even if he's dead, I couldn't care less." She had adopted a new brother, trying to fill the void he left with a replacement, never once trying to understand the reason for his desperate cruelty. A tidal wave of guilt and regret crashed over her, drowning her. She remembered their last phone call. Her own choked, bitter words. "Fine. You want money? I'll give it all to you. Are you happy now? I should have known better. You are heartless." Then she had hung up and blocked his number. How much pain must her words have caused him? Was he throwing up blood again right after? Was he clutching that little dog, Chance, and sobbing his heart out? The pain she had suppressed for so long finally erupted from her throat in a piercing, animalistic wail. Chloe slid from her chair and collapsed onto the floor, curling into a ball like a lost child and sobbing uncontrollably. Her cries were filled with despair, self-loathing, and the agony of irreversible loss. She beat her fists against the floor, her nails digging into the plush fibers of the carpet. I could have saved him. How did I not recognize him? The thought chewed at her sanity. That day, outside her therapist's office, the gaunt figure in the beanie and mask she'd mistaken for a reporter, that was her Ethan. He had been looking right at her, and she had coldly looked away. If only she had stopped. If only she had asked. If only. But life has no if-onlys. Outside the office, Mark and a few other assistants heard her shattered cries. They exchanged worried, sympathetic glances, but no one dared to enter. They all knew Ms. Hawthorne needed this release. She needed to face the horrifying truth alone. Chloe cried until her voice was gone and she had no tears left, her body just racked with uncontrollable, silent sobs. She lay limp on the floor, staring blankly at the ornate chandelier above, feeling as though all the color had drained from the world. The next day, Chloe didn't show up at the office. After handling the most urgent matters, a worried Mark went to her mansion that evening. He let himself in with a spare key and was immediately hit by the overwhelming stench of alcohol. The living room was a disaster, littered with empty bottles. Chloe was still in yesterday's suit, curled up on the sofa. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were red and swollen, and fresh tear tracks stained her cheeks. In her hand, she clutched the photocopy of the diary. "Ms. Hawthorne," Mark said, approaching cautiously. Chloe slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were vacant, and it took a long moment for them to focus on his face. "Mark," she rasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Did he hate me? In the end, did he hate me?" Mark's heart ached. He knelt and gently took an empty bottle from her hand. "Ms. Hawthorne, based on the diary, Ethan never hated you. He was wishing for your happiness right up to the very end." "Happiness?" she choked out. "I lost him. What right do I have to be happy?" She reached for another bottle, but Mark held her hand down. "Ms. Hawthorne, please, you can't do this. If Ethan could see you destroying yourself, he would never be able to rest in peace." Chloe's eyes filled with tears again as she mumbled. "He was always so afraid of pain. He must have been so scared, all alone. Chance wasn't even with him at the end. He was just holding the bear Mom gave him." Her voice broke, and she just wept silently. It took all of Mark's effort to get her into bed. He managed to get her to drink some water and watched as she fell into a fitful sleep, her brow still creased in anguish. He sighed. He knew she needed time, but what would happen to the company? And how long could she survive like this? In the days that followed, Chloe was a different person. She stopped going to the office, refused all calls, and locked herself in her mansion with only bottles for company. She tried to drown her sorrow in alcohol, but in her drunken stupors, Ethan's memory only grew sharper. The little boy trailing after her, calling her name, the awkward, rebellious teenager, the gaunt figure sobbing in the dark, clutching the body of his dead dog. Her adopted brother, Leo, video-called from his boarding school overseas, staring at his face on the screen, a face that looked a little like Ethan's, but had been polished and perfected with her money. Chloe was hit with a wave of revulsion and guilt. What had she been doing? Trying to create a replacement? It was unfair to Leo and a desecration of Ethan's memory. She screamed at the concerned face on the screen, a raw, broken sound that left Leo stunned and speechless. Shortly after, she transferred Leo to a different, more prestigious school and set up a trust fund for him that would ensure he'd be comfortable for life. The email she sent him contained only one line: "I'm sorry. I haven't been a good sister to you. Go live your own life." She cut off all contact with her replacement, as if severing that tie could somehow lessen the guilt she felt toward her real brother. The company's performance nosedived. Shareholders were furious, and the media began publishing speculative stories about Ms. Hawthorne's mental breakdown. Mark was at his wit's end, completely unable to reach the woman who was drowning in her own grief and guilt. The turning point came late one night. Chloe had passed out on the living room floor again. In that hazy space between sleep and consciousness, she saw him. Ethan was standing before her, wearing a clean white shirt, his smile as bright and warm as she remembered. At his feet, the little beige dog, Chance, wagged his tail happily. "Chloe," the vision of Ethan said, his voice soft. "Please stop torturing yourself, okay?" "Ethan," she whispered, reaching out, but her hand closed on empty air. Tears blurred her vision. "I'm so sorry. I was so wrong. I never blamed you," the vision smiled, his warmth washing over her. "I was so happy and proud to see how successful you became. Chloe, please live a good life for both of us. Be happy, okay? That's my greatest wish." "Ethan," Chloe sobbed. "Promise me, Chloe." His image began to fade, his voice growing distant. I promise you," she cried out, bolting upright on the floor. The living room was empty. Only moonlight streamed through the window. There was no sign of Ethan, but the dream had been so vivid, his words still echoing in her ears. A fresh wave of grief washed over her, but this time, mixed with the pain, was a tiny, fragile flicker of strength. He had wanted her to be happy. That was his final wish. How sad would he be, watching her destroy herself like this? She couldn't let him down. She couldn't let his sacrifice, his pain, be for nothing. The next morning, when Mark arrived at the mansion, he was shocked to find Chloe already awake. She had showered and changed into clean clothes. Her face was still pale and drawn, but the dead emptiness in her eyes was gone, replaced by a look of almost brutal clarity and resolve. Her voice was still hoarse, but calm. "Get me an appointment with the best doctor in the city. I want a full physical. And notify the board we're having a video conference this afternoon." "Ms. Hawthorne, are you?" "I'm fine," she cut him off, her gaze fixed on the sunlight streaming through the window. "Or rather, I have to be, for Ethan, and as my penance." With astonishing willpower, Chloe began to rebuild her life. She followed her doctor's orders, quit drinking, and forced herself to eat and sleep on a regular schedule. She threw herself back into her work with a ruthless efficiency that surpassed even her former self, quickly stabilizing the company's freefall. But those who knew her could sense a change. The old Chloe, who could still show a flicker of warmth, was gone. In her place was a precise, cold machine, driven by what seemed to be a need to fill the emptiness inside her with endless work. Outside of work, however, she began a secret, obsessive quest. She had to find every trace of Ethan's last days. She had to know exactly how he had lived during the 5 months she had abandoned him. Through Mark, she found Alex, the girl who had posted online. They met in a quiet corner of a coffee shop. Chloe saw a young woman with a tough, street-smart look in her eyes. Alex's expression was a mixture of sympathy, accusation, and something that looked like relief. "Ms. Hawthorne, you finally came," Alex said with a sigh. "I tried to reach you before, but your assistant blocked me. I thought you really didn't care about him." "I care." Chloe's voice was low, trembling almost imperceptibly. "I was just blind. Please, tell me everything you know about Ethan." Alex looked at the powerful woman before her and saw the bottomless grief hidden in her eyes. Her heart softened. She began to talk, starting with the filthy hostel, telling Chloe about Ethan's innocence and his stubborn pride, about how he coughed up blood but refused to see a doctor, and how she had to force the truth out of him about his illness, offering her meager savings to help. "He was too considerate for his own good. It was heartbreaking," Alex said, her eyes welling up. "He kept saying he couldn't be a burden, that I needed to save my money for my auto shop. When he left, all he took were a few clothes and that old teddy bear. I looked for him for so long after that. I checked hospitals, parks, underpasses, but this city is just too big. I couldn't find him." Alex's voice broke. "If I had just kept a closer eye on him, if I had forced him to go to the hospital." Chloe listened in silence, her fingernails digging into her palms. While she had been hating him, a stranger had given her brother warmth and shelter, had searched for him, while she, his own sister, had done nothing. Chloe took a deep, steadying breath. "Thank you, Alex," she said, her voice heavy with sincerity. "Thank you for being there for him when he was at his worst. If there is anything you ever want, or anything you need, you have only to ask." Alex shook her head. "I don't need anything. I didn't post that story to get something out of it. I just wanted people to know that Ethan was a good kid. He didn't deserve to be remembered that way. If you really want to do something for him, then live a good life. Don't let his sacrifice be for nothing." Alex's words, so similar to what Ethan had said in her dream, struck Chloe to the core. After leaving the cafe, she drove to the address Alex had given her. The rundown neighborhood was gone, replaced by a new, gleaming shopping center. She stood on the busy street corner, trying to imagine Ethan struggling to survive here, avoiding that creepy man, feeling a surge of joy over a $60 payday. A dull ache spread through her chest. She visited the supermarket and the market he'd mentioned, and even found the vet's office. The vet was still there. Chloe showed him a photo of Ethan from her phone, a picture of him at 17, smiling without a care in the world. The vet studied it for a long time before shaking his head. "I'm sorry, we see so many animals. I just can't remember." Chloe didn't give up. She described Chance, a small, beige mutt with an injured leg. The vet frowned, thinking hard. "That does sound a little familiar," he admitted, "but I can't recall the specifics." Undeterred, Chloe used her resources to track down the police officer who had been assigned to Ethan's case. The officer, now nearing retirement, remembered it well. He took her to the small grove by the river where Ethan's body had been found. The old officer pointed to a large tree by the water's edge and sighed. "That poor kid. It was heartbreaking. He was right there. Looked so peaceful, like he was just sleeping. We investigated thoroughly, but there was no sign of foul play. We read the diary. It was clearly a suicide. He didn't have much on him, just the teddy bear, the diary, and a little cash. We put out a notice for next of kin, as per procedure, but no one ever came forward." The officer glanced at Chloe, leaving the rest unsaid. Chloe stood beneath the tree. An early summer breeze rustled the leaves, and sunlight dappled the ground. It was quiet, except for the gentle sound of the river. Had Ethan chosen this spot to be closer to their parents? What was he thinking in his final moments as he looked out at this peaceful grove? Was he remembering the picnics Mom and Dad used to take them on? She knelt and gently touched the rough bark of the tree, as if she could feel the last trace of his warmth. Silent tears fell, soaking into the earth. "Ethan, I'm here," she whispered, her voice shattering in the wind. "I'm so sorry I'm late." Finally, she went to the cemetery. Next to her parents' grave, she found the small, unremarkable mound of earth he had described. This was where he had buried Chance. It was now covered in green grass and tiny wildflowers. She carefully cleared the weeds around it. Then, next to Chance's little grave, she buried a small, ornate box. Inside were the ashes of the original diary. She had paid to have it professionally and cleanly incinerated, and had brought the ashes here. She gently patted the mound of earth. "Chance," she said softly, "thank you for being with him in those last days. Please, keep him company here. Keep him and Mom and Dad company, okay?" After she was done, Chloe stood before her parents' tombstone. Looking at their smiling faces in the photograph, she bowed deeply. Her voice was calm and steady. "Mom, Dad, I'm sorry. I failed to take care of him, but I promise you, from this day forward, I will live my life for both of us. I will do something to make his life and his death meaningful." Back in the city, Chloe made a momentous decision. She called a press conference and announced the formation of the Ethan Chance Foundation. She was seeding it with the majority of her personal assets. The foundation would have two primary missions: to provide financial and psychological support for underprivileged young people with cancer, and to fund the rescue, treatment, and adoption of stray animals. At the press conference, for the first time, Chloe spoke openly about her brother. She didn't go into detail, but simply said, "In his life, my brother Ethan experienced both the kindness of strangers and the cruel hardships of the world. I am establishing this foundation in his memory to help others who are facing the same struggles he did. It is my hope that every life can be treated with gentleness, and that every act of kindness can be paid forward." Her announcement stunned the business world and moved millions of ordinary people. The online chorus of mockery and doubt was replaced by a wave of understanding and admiration. People finally understood the story of profound pain and redemption hidden behind the icy facade of Miss Hawthorne. The foundation's work began immediately. Chloe was personally involved in every aspect, from reviewing grant applications to visiting the children in hospitals and the animals in shelters. During these visits, a genuine, gentle expression would sometimes grace her features. The sadness in her eyes never fully disappeared, but she seemed to be finding a way to live with her pain. She often visited a children's hospital the foundation supported, sitting quietly and watching the young patients. One day, a little boy, who had the same illness as Ethan and had lost all his hair to chemo, gave her a bright, optimistic smile. In that moment, Chloe saw her brother as a child. She walked over, gently stroked the boy's head, and handed him a brand new, collectible motorcycle model. The boy's look of pure joy sent a warm ripple across the frozen surface of her heart. She tried again to help Alex, offering to fund the auto repair shop she dreamed of. But Alex refused once more. "I appreciate the offer, Ms. Hawthorne, I really do," she said with an easy smile. "But I want to earn it myself. Besides, I'm volunteering with your foundation now, helping coordinate the animal rescues. Feels good. I think this is what Ethan would have wanted, to see us both living good lives in our own ways." Chloe didn't press the issue. She respected Alex's choice and felt a deep gratitude that her brother had found such a loyal friend in his final days. "You know," Alex said one day, looking out a window, her voice calm, "he used to say that plain bread with a little soy sauce was the most delicious thing in the world. I knew he was just starving, but when he said it, his eyes would light up like he was describing a five-star meal." Chloe listened in silence, her nails digging into her palms so hard it was the only way she could keep from breaking down. These small details were so much more vivid than the words in the diary, and each one was a fresh, sharp cut to her heart. She knew it all now. She knew how he had eaten cold bread with tap water in the dead of winter. She knew how he had shivered with pain in the corner of his bed, biting back any sound. And she knew how his little dog, Chance, had licked the tears from his face when he was at his lowest. She got the address of the old hostel from Alex. Even though the neighborhood had been demolished and replaced with high-rises, she would often drive there and just park on the side of the road. She would do nothing but stare at the new buildings, trying to picture her sick brother, forcing himself to get through another day in this place. She continued to run the company with impeccable order, but that relentless, desperate drive she once had was gone. She delegated more, no longer needing to control every single detail. People said that what happened with her brother had changed her, that she'd found peace in her charity work. Only Mark knew that Chloe's heart had never found peace at all. The copy of the diary in her study was worn at the edges from being read so many times. Next to it were stacks of research papers on liver cancer treatments, on hospice care, on psychological intervention. It was as if she were conducting a lifelong research project on the brother she had failed, trying over and over again to rewrite a past that could never be changed. 3 years passed in a blur. The Ethan Chance Foundation had helped thousands of families, and Chloe had received numerous accolades for her work. Then, on a drizzly afternoon, she got a call. It was Leo, her adopted brother, calling from overseas. His voice was hesitant, worried. "Chloe, I was cleaning out some old boxes at the house here, and I found something. It's an old photo album hidden away, full of pictures of Ethan as a kid. And there were a few loose pages from a diary you kept when you were a teenager. I read them, and I think I found out some things you might have forgotten, about what really happened right before Mom and Dad died." Chloe's hand trembled as she held the phone. The sound of the rain against the window pane suddenly felt ominous. She told Leo to mail everything to her. The package arrived a few days later. Inside was the album and a few yellowed loose-leaf pages. It was her handwriting from when she was a teenager, messy and rushed, clearly written in a state of high emotion. It was an entry from the night before her parents' accident. It described a terrible fight. Her father had wanted to take a huge, risky gamble with the company, and her mother had supported him. A younger Chloe had argued desperately against it, finally screaming at them in anger, "You're going to drag us all down with you." The page was filled with her resentment at their stubbornness and her fear for their future. The last line read, "If this family falls apart, it will be all their fault." Those words, buried for decades, were a rusty key that suddenly forced open a locked door in her memory. She sank into her chair, a cold sweat breaking out all over her body. She remembered it all now. Because of the fight, she hadn't even said goodbye to them the morning of the accident. For all these years, the overwhelming grief and guilt had made her selectively forget that fight, remembering only her parents' love and her own helplessness. "So all this time," she whispered to herself, "while Ethan was suffering, I was carrying this other guilt too, a guilt for their deaths. I always thought losing him was my punishment for failing him. I never considered that it might also have been fate's punishment for what I said to them." The weight of this double guilt almost crushed her. She locked herself in her study for 2 days. When she finally emerged, she told Mark, "I'm going to the cemetery to see Ethan and Chance, and my parents." At the cemetery, she stood before the graves. She had arranged for Ethan and Chance to be buried together, right next to their parents. On the headstone, a photo of the smiling boy, with Chance sitting obediently at his feet. Chloe stood in the light rain, wearing her black coat, not bothering with an umbrella. She stared at the photograph for a long time before slowly sinking to her knees. She didn't cry. She just gently wiped the raindrops from the image of his face. "Ethan," she said softly, "I think I'm starting to understand. I always thought I lost you because I wasn't good enough. But now I think maybe our family was on a difficult path long before that. Dad's gambling, Mom enabling him, my own stubbornness, and your terrible, unlucky sickness. It was all of it, mixed together. I was wrong. I was wrong to be so young and cruel. I was wrong to spend all those years trying to prove myself instead of seeing that you were just trying to protect me. And I was wrong to spend all this time torturing myself when I almost forgot your final wish. You said you wanted me to be happy. I used to think that was impossible. How could I ever be happy without you?" She paused, and the rain running down her face mixed with the tears that finally began to fall. "But now I want to try. I'm going to keep looking after the Ethan Chance Foundation to help more kids like you. I'm going to run the company well and make it a force for good. And I'm going to try to really live my life. That includes Leo. He's a good kid, and he deserves better. Ethan, I may never be able to fully forgive myself, but I promise you, I won't stay buried in the past. I will carry my love for you, and I will live a good, meaningful life. That's all you ever wanted, isn't it?" She leaned forward and pressed her forehead against the cold stone, as if she could feel a response from the other side. The rain began to subside, and a single ray of sunlight broke through the clouds. It illuminated the bouquet of white flowers she had laid down, making the raindrops on the petals sparkle like diamonds. Chloe stood up, gave her brother's picture one last look, and walked away. Her steps were no longer as heavy as they had been when she arrived. They were still slow, but they felt more solid, more grounded. A breeze whispered through the nearby pine trees, a sound like a sigh of both sorrow and relief. It seems the story could end here. A story of forgiveness and redemption, of learning how to carry your wounds and keep walking forward. Chloe Hawthorne had finally turned the most painful page of her life and was beginning to write the next. It would always be a story filled with longing, but perhaps now it would also have a little light of its own. Chloe's life settled into a new rhythm. She was still busy, but it was no longer the frantic, self-punishing pace of before. She began seeing her therapist regularly, finally confronting her complex feelings about her parents' deaths and the guilt that had defined her relationship with Ethan. The process was difficult, marked by sleepless nights and emotional setbacks, but she persevered. Her relationship with Leo entered a new phase as well. After receiving the album, she called him, the first time she had ever initiated a long conversation. She didn't try to explain the past, but she sincerely thanked him for helping her uncover a part of herself she had buried. She acknowledged the distance he must have felt and made it clear that, blood or not, they were family, and she wanted to build a real relationship with him. "You take care of yourself, too, Chloe," he had replied. The Ethan Chance Foundation grew steadily under her guidance. She expanded its mission beyond just financial aid, establishing teams of social workers to provide psychological support and hospice care. At one of the foundation's annual galas, a young girl whose treatment they had funded grabbed her hand, tears in her eyes. "Ms. Hawthorne," she said, "thank you and thank Ethan for giving me a second chance at life." In that moment, Chloe felt not just gratification, but a strange sense of peace, as if Ethan's life was continuing on in a different form. She still visited the cemetery, but her visits were no longer steeped in grief. Sometimes she'd bring sunflowers, his favorite. Other times she'd just sit and talk, telling them about the foundation or complaining about a problem at work, just as she would have with Ethan. Once, she even left a new chew toy by Chance's grave. "Take good care of him, Chance," she whispered. 2 more years passed. After a business conference, Chloe was in the hotel lobby when she ran into a familiar face. Mr. Davies, the reporter who had hosted the live broadcast. He was now a respected figure in journalism, with a touch of silver at his temples. He approached her with a warm smile, though his eyes held a hint of gentle inquiry. "Ms. Hawthorne, it's been a long time." Chloe nodded, her voice even. "Mr. Davies, good to see you." They sat down in the hotel cafe. After a few minutes of small talk, Mr. Davies hesitated, then asked, "How have you been all these years?" Chloe stirred her coffee, her gaze drifting to the bustling street outside. "I wouldn't say good," she said slowly, "but not bad either. I've learned to make peace with myself, to live with the past. I suppose that's what growing up is. My tuition was just very, very high. That diary changed a lot of people, myself included," Mr. Davies said. "It taught me about the fragility of life and the weight of family. I've always wanted to thank you for allowing it to be shared, and also to apologize for the way the truth came out." "I'm the one who should be thanking you," Chloe replied. "You brought me Ethan's last words. As painful as it was, without that diary, I would have spent the rest of my life believing a lie. That would have been the real injustice to him." After a moment of silence, Mr. Davies seemed to come to a decision. He reached into his briefcase, pulled out a slightly yellowed manila envelope, and slid it across the table to her. Chloe looked at it, confused. "What's this?" "This was found with the diary when they collected Ethan's belongings," he explained. "It didn't feel right to release it at the time, so I've held on to it. I think it's time you had it." Chloe's heart skipped a beat. She took a deep breath and carefully opened the envelope. It wasn't a letter. It was a drawing, the colors slightly faded. The paper had been torn from a spiral notebook, its edge ragged. It was a scene, carefully rendered in colored pencil. A bright blue sky, a sunny day, a field of green grass. A girl with a ponytail and a huge smile, clearly a younger Chloe, was holding the hand of a little boy, Ethan. In her other hand, she held the leash of a small, beige dog, Chance. And behind them stood their parents, their faces full of joy. On the back of the drawing, in smaller, Messier handwriting in a darker ink, were a few words Ethan must have added later. "I'm sorry, Chloe, and I love you." Tears instantly blurred Chloe's vision. She could see him, a boy wasted away by sickness, spending his last hours, his hand trembling with pain, carefully drawing the one thing he wanted most in the world but could never have again. There was no resentment in it, only apology and love. She clutched the thin piece of paper as if it were the most precious thing on earth. A tear fell onto the page, and she frantically wiped it away, terrified of smudging the last trace of her brother. Choking back a sob, she said to Mr. Davies and to herself, "He was always thinking of me." Mr. Davies, his own eyes red, simply nodded. That night, Chloe had the drawing professionally framed. She hung it in her study right next to the copy of the diary. She stood before it for a very long time. In the years that followed, Chloe remained the formidable Ms. Hawthorne, a titan of industry and the powerful founder of the Ethan Chance Foundation. But deep inside her, a small part of her heart would forever belong to an 18-year-old boy and his little dog. She no longer tried to forget. She chose to remember, and she carried that heavy, profound love with her as she walked through the world, trying her best to live the life he had wished for her. She knew that life would bring more storms, but in her heart, she now held an eternal, warm umbrella for both herself and for Ethan. It wasn't a happy ending, not by any means, but it was, at last, a kind of real, scarred, and honest wholeness. Chloe's life settled into a new normal. The drawing, which she titled My Family, was like a tiny beam of light that had found its way into the coldest, darkest corner of her heart. It didn't erase her grief, but it miraculously dissolved the sharpest edges of her self-loathing. She realized that Ethan had left her not just with pain and regret, but with a love so pure it was a blessing, and that knowledge gave her the strength to truly move on. She began to actively shape her life outside of work. She took up oil painting again, a passion from her youth, signing up for a weekend class. The smell of turpentine and the feel of the brush on canvas brought her a sense of peace she hadn't felt in years. She painted landscapes and still lives, but never people, and especially not her family. That drawing was Ethan's masterpiece, and she couldn't bring herself to try and replicate it. Her relationship with Leo became more natural, too. After college, Leo returned to the States but chose not to join Hawthorne Industries, instead landing a job at a tech startup on his own merits. Chloe respected his independence, offering advice only when asked, as a mentor rather than a boss. They started having dinner together, talking about work and life like any normal siblings. When Leo brought his girlfriend to meet her, the young woman was nervous, but Chloe just smiled warmly. "Take good care of each other," she said, and in that moment, she could almost see a future where Ethan was still alive, and she was meeting the person he loved. The Ethan Chance Foundation grew in influence. They began partnering with top medical research institutes, funding studies on early detection and targeted therapies for liver cancer. Chloe was more than just a benefactor. She sat in on project meetings, offering a family member's perspective. During one presentation, a young researcher excitedly reported a new screening technique that could improve early detection rates by 30%. Listening to him, Chloe felt a familiar heat behind her eyes. She remembered Ethan's diagnosis, already late stage. She dug her nails into her palm, forcing the emotion down. If only they had caught it sooner. Her resolve to fund this research hardened into steel. Time passed peacefully, until one autumn afternoon when Chloe received a call from a hospice. It wasn't about Leo, it was about Alex. "Ms. Alex has taken a turn for the worse," the nurse said gently. "It's from years of pushing herself too hard. The prognosis isn't good. She's asking to see you." Chloe canceled everything and drove immediately. In the sterile-smelling room, Alex was far thinner than Chloe remembered, her face pale, but her eyes still held that same clear, defiant spark. She managed a weak smile. "Ms. Hawthorne, you came." Chloe sat by the bed and took her frail hand. "Don't call me Ms. Hawthorne. Please, call me Chloe." Alex shook her head, taking a ragged breath. "Habit. Besides, you are Ms. Hawthorne. I don't have much time. There's something I've been meaning to tell you." Chloe's heart clenched. "Tell me." Alex's gaze drifted toward the window, her eyes distant with memory. "Before he died, Ethan left a message for you. It wasn't in the diary. He was having a really bad day, in a lot of pain. He was kind of delirious, and he grabbed my hand and said, 'Alex, if my sister ever finds out, please tell her for me.'" Alex paused, her breathing shallow. Chloe offered her a glass of water, but she waved it away, determined to finish. He said, "Tell her not to be sad for too long. Tell her to find someone to be with so she won't be alone like after Mom and Dad died. And tell her to eat a hot meal every day." Her voice faded, the last words barely a whisper. Silent tears streamed down Chloe's face. "Don't be sad for too long. Find someone. Eat a hot meal." These were his last thoughts. Choking on a sob, Chloe pressed her face into Alex's hand. "That foolish, foolish boy," she wept. "He never blamed you," Alex whispered. "He always said you were the best sister in the world." A few days later, Alex passed away peacefully. Chloe had her buried next to Ethan, laying a bouquet of sunflowers on the fresh earth. "Go be with him now," she said. She started to take meals seriously, even hiring a cook and learning a few dishes herself. The warmth of the kitchen felt grounding. One evening, listening to Leo's excited voice on the phone, celebrating a success at work, she found herself smiling. She walked into her study and looked at the drawing. This time, there were no tears, only a quiet promise. "I will live a good life," she whispered. "I'll carry all of your love with me." Her visits to the cemetery became less like mourning and more like visiting old friends, where she'd sit and share the latest news. She moved the drawing to her bedroom, a daily reminder of the love that surrounded her. The foundation helped hundreds of thousands, its early screening programs saving countless lives. Each success story eased the ache of her regret. At a global philanthropy summit, a speaker noted that the foundation's name, Ethan Chance, embodied a profound philosophy, that we remember the dead in order to better cherish the living. Chloe smiled. That had become her life's work. Leo's career took off. He brought his girlfriend, a kind young woman named Olivia, to meet her. Olivia made a pot roast that tasted remarkably like their mother's. A decade passed. The silver at Chloe's temple spread, and her eyes held a deep serenity. She stepped back from the day-to-day operations of the company, focusing on strategy and her foundation, and spent her free time in her garden, which was filled with sunflowers and white chrysanthemums. When a documentary filmmaker approached her about telling the foundation's story, she agreed on the condition that it focus on the work, not the tragedy. "How did you move on from such a dark time?" the director asked. "You don't move on," Chloe replied. "You learn to carry it. The people you love become a part of you. The foundation is about carrying that love forward, to create more chances at life for others." The documentary was a quiet success, her story of rebuilding from ruin resonating with many. At Leo's wedding, she looked at the happy couple, then at the empty chair they had saved for Ethan. "I know someone who couldn't be here today is very happy for you both," she said in her toast. "You have to be happy, Chloe," Leo told her later. Chloe became a grandmother. She held her granddaughter, Claire, whose eyes were the same shade of brown as Ethan's. She would push her stroller through the garden. "Look," she'd say, pointing to the sky, "that's your great-uncle Ethan and his dog Chance. They love you very much." When Claire was 3, she learned to say grandma, and the sound of her small voice was a balm to Chloe's soul. She read her fairy tales, but never the one about the boy and his diary. Hawthorne Industries thrived, as did the foundation. Chloe retired, spending her days in her garden. One night, little Claire pointed to the sky. "Grandma, bright star." Chloe smiled. "Maybe that's your great-uncle Ethan," she said softly, "watching over us." For her 70th birthday, Leo gave her a handmade scrapbook. The first page was a child's crayon copy of Ethan's drawing, with Claire's wobbly letters underneath: great-grandpa, great-grandma, great-uncle Ethan, Chance, and us. The last pages were blank, with a small note from Leo, "For us to fill in together." Chloe traced the drawing with her finger, her eyes wet but a smile on her lips. He hadn't been forgotten. He was a warm and cherished part of their family's story. In her final years, she spent her time organizing old family belongings, labeling each one, so Claire would always know the story of where she came from. In the end, after a long life devoted to others, Chloe Hawthorne passed away peacefully. Her nurse later said that just before the end, she had tears in her eyes and whispered, "Mom, Dad, Ethan, you're here for me. I'm so sorry I didn't take care of him." The nurse added, "I've never seen an old woman cry with such heartbreak, but when she finally passed, she was so peaceful. She had the most contented, childlike smile on her face."